Welcome to this video. Throughout this video, we're going to be talking about incident report writing in your RA role. So the purpose of this video is to help give you an understanding of how to write an incident report clearly and correctly. So we're going to be going over duty responsibilities, what to include, some technical stuff, proofreading, and then we'll talk about sanctioning. But first, we have a couple of questions for you. So how did you do? We're going to go over the questions now, but to start, after an incident, at what time should an incident report be submitted? Ideally, we'd like to have the report immediately following the incident or by 8 o'clock the next morning at the latest. The next question, after an incident, who should write and submit the incident report? Well, every RA on duty who responded to the incident should work together to write one report. This means you're going to have to collaborate and work together to provide as much detail as possible. And finally, where can you find the link to the incident report form? Well, the form can be found through the UHDS website under Staff Resources, and we've provided you the link here. So now we're going to be going over gathering information. When you're responding to an incident, what information do you need to have before you leave? Ideally, you want to get as much information as possible, such as the who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes you'll get the how. You want to make sure to get the students' names and ID numbers, and if you have guests in the room who aren't students, you want to make sure to get their driver's license or state ID. Next, you want to note the date, location, and time of the incident. You want to make sure we know where it happened and when it happened. Next, you want to give any campus addresses or any local addresses of the guests that are in the room. Maybe a summary of events would be helpful. Give some specific quotes about what was said and who said it. And then give other information that might be pertinent to different violations that happen. For example, for an alcohol violation, what type of alcohol, what brand. For noise violations, what was the cause of the noise, relatively how loud was it, and when did you begin hearing that noise? Now we're going to give you an opportunity to practice. So using this picture, what would you indicate in your incident report? So assume that this is a first-year building. We're going to give you a few moments to look at the picture, really take it in, and then fill out a brief form about what you saw. It's time to check in again. So let's see if what we found matches what you found. We found a beer pong table. It looks like there's been some alcohol in the cups. There are about 3 open bottles on the table, 2 cans, 10 clear solo cups, and 3 red solo cups. So it's pretty clear this is an alcohol violation because it's in a first-year building. There were also 6 people in the room, 3 males and 3 females. This could potentially be a guest policy violation, as some of our spaces are not safe to have this many people in one room. There were also 3 other cans in the room, making a total of 5 cans, 3 bottles, and 1 clear solo cup that definitely had alcohol in it. So now that the incident is over, you've gotten everything you could get from the students involved. Each RA has some notes written down. What do you do? What are you responsible for doing? Well, you want to work on the IR with other on-duty RAs. Compare your notes. Make sure you're walking away with the same accurate information. Don't shrug it off and guess. Write your report accurately. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the contents and the things that go into your incident report. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but now we're going to get into more specific details. Take a second to think about what information you think should be included in the incident report. Does it match any of this? What did you miss? What sort of things did you not consider? And now let's take that a step further. What else might we have missed in our report? You might not have thought of how the students were acting, what else you saw, smelled, heard, felt, or tasted while in the room. Could you tell if the students were intoxicated? How could you tell? Were the students under the influence of another drug? Again, how could you tell? Were the students jacked up and in your face? How could you tell? What was the source of the noise you heard? Where did you find the students? Were the students rude, polite, angry, ignoring you? Were you overly aggressive, a little meek, or just the right amount of awesome? If you take nothing else away from this, remember to report everything. Everything you see, everything you smell, everything you hear that happens in the incident. So now it's time to get into the technical stuff. You really want to make sure you're checking your voice. Avoid definitive statements and leave your feelings out of it. So there's a big difference between these two statements. And you want to make sure that you're being objective and just stating your observations. Talk about things that people said, what you heard and what you saw. Not You want to make sure to use third person whenever possible. Act as an outside observer to the situation. So instead of saying, I asked John for his ID, you might say something like, R.A. Michael asked resident John for a student ID. So next we want to talk about understanding roles within different incidents. Every person in the room or area has a role in the incident, so make sure you understand what these roles mean: alleged, victim, witness, student of concern, and guest. If John is a student who lives in 104 and he's found to have alcohol in the incident in room 108, he's an alleged person in this case. He allegedly broke the policy. Let's say Heather is Tanya's roommate, and she's come to you because she's worried about Tanya's well-being, and she says some things that you feel you should report. Tanya would be a student of concern. This is somebody who you want to inform your head staff to follow up with because things have happened and you are concerned. Mark was playing basketball outside, and when he came back to his building, he was bleeding from his eyebrow and lip. He said he got hit on the court by another student. Mark, in this case, if Jacqueline is found at an incident in 106 and hands you her driver's license when asked for an ID, she's likely a guest in this situation if you can confirm that she does not live on campus. And finally, we have George, who is Mark's friend. George was watching the basketball game when Mark was hit, and he came back with Mark, who was bleeding. In this case, George is a witness. He is someone who saw the incident happen and has some information that he can share about the incident. So it's important that you know the distinction between all of those. You also want to look out for what we call pronoun ambiguity. So consider what this sentence is saying. R.A. Nick asked resident Joe for his ID and he walked into the room to get it. Doesn't seem very clear. It's hard to determine who is doing what action. Now consider if R.A. Jenny asked resident Chelsea to pour out her alcohol, she said that it wasn't hers. Again, we don't really know who is saying what and who is doing what, and who the alcohol belongs to. It's very difficult to determine who is responsible when we have this ambiguity. So it's important to make sure that you're clear about which subject your pronoun is referring to. If it isn't clear, don't use the pronoun, use the person's name instead. Now we're going to talk about proofreading. It's important that you check, double check, and triple check all your information. So making sure your spelling is right, your dates, location, are you being clear enough? Are you objective enough? Did you give a good summary? Did you get all the ID numbers right? Did you write down the correct names, the buildings, the room numbers? Double check your roles and make sure that you have everybody in the right role. So now we're going to talk about sanctions. So we're going to play a game. Excuse me as I wave my magic wand and poof, you're all temporarily promoted to ACDs. This means you get to hear some conduct cases. We're going to look at 2 incident reports, and you have to tell me if you have a clear picture of what happened based on the reports. So we'll give you a few moments to look at each report, and you'll answer some questions after. I'm going to move on to the next report, so if you need more time, please rewind the video and pause it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative and helped you gain a better understanding of what it looks like to write an effective incident report. If you have any questions, please feel free to email either Sarah Hart or contact your complex director or any of the Seal Hall team, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.